the most feared creature in 300 years of darkness, saw a soaking wet girl get left in the rain by everyone she trusted, and cried, a single crimson tear down his cheek, for her. Now ask yourself, what does a girl with nothing, no money, no shelter, no one left to open the door, what does she have that a king of monsters would cross a war zone just to protect? You already think you know. You don't. The city of Nocturne had been beautiful once. Lamplit streets, a university on a hill that promised poor kids like Amara Kane that merit was all you needed. That was before the vampire curse erupted. Now every screen, every speaker, every crackling radio pulsed the same cold command. All citizens must evacuate immediately to Lumina Citadel. This is not a drill. People ran. Doors slammed. Windows went dark. Her name was Amara Kane, 22. Rain-soaked curls, eyes that still believed people were fundamentally good. Still, after everything, she clutched a crumpled bag against her chest. Inside, a bruised apple, a dented tin of soup, a bread roll from the campus discard bin. Not stolen, salvaged. Her scholarship had been revoked 3 weeks ago. Unpaid tuition. Her mother, Nia, fighting a severe blood illness back home. At Nocturne University, poverty was treated like a disease, and everyone around Amara had been quietly backing away for years. She ran faster, lips moving in a breathless whisper. "Mom, I'm coming home. Just hold on." She reached the dormitory, pounded on the door. "Jabari, it's me! Please, open up!" She could hear them inside, shuffling, furniture dragged against the wall. "Jabari, I'm not infected! I just need 5 minutes out of the rain!" The voice that answered was almost bored. "You've been out in the streets." I have to think about the group. Amara went completely still. The bread roll slipped from her bag, fell into the puddle. She didn't pick it up. "I'm not infected. I'm just poor. Is that enough to throw me away?" Nothing. Not a sound. Just the rain. And the sirens. And her forehead leaning against a door that would never open. And then the air changed. Instantly. A presence. Heavy. Ancient. The kind of stillness that lives at the bottom of very deep water. She turned. He stood at the far end of the corridor like he had always been there. Tall, silver hair soaked dark, eyes the color of old rubies. Thornival Voss, the Vampire King. Her bag hit the floor. She lifted her chin. So this is it? She squeezed her eyes shut and waited. Instead, warmth, 2 hands, impossibly careful, cradling her face like she was something that could shatter. She opened her eyes. He was close, and on his cheek, tracing slowly downward, a single crimson tear. He pressed his lips, gently, to her forehead. "Don't be afraid, little girl in the pink dress. For 10 years, I have been the shadow that kept you safe." Amara's breath caught. "Who are you?" His answer came slowly, like something finally being released. "The one you once saved, with a cup of warm milk. The one who has never forgotten." She had no memory of saving anyone, but somewhere deep inside her chest, something shifted, and she had absolutely no idea how much her life was about to change. A vampire king wept for a girl the whole world threw away. Would you have opened that door for her? Or would you have been Jabari? She didn't go willingly. She told herself that later. She had simply followed. Because what else was she going to do? Voss Citadel rose out of the fog like something old and proud. Gothic arches, black stone walls, every window burning pale silver. Amara stopped at the gate. "I'm not going in there." Thorneval paused, turned. "You are soaking wet, carrying a bruised apple and a tin of soup, in a city under siege." He tilted his head. "Where, precisely, do you intend to go?" She looked at the apple. She walked through the gate. Inside, two figures leaned against opposite pillars, staring. "He brought someone home. I have eyes. Carter. In 300 years, he has never kissed anyone. Zaire. This is historically significant." "Enough!" One word, delivered quietly. Both men snapped upright. Amara looked at them. Then, almost against her will, she laughed. Short, tired, but real. Carter and Zaire looked at each other like men who had witnessed something miraculous. She laughed. Carter mouthed silently. Zaire pressed both hands to his chest. He made her dry clothes, a room with a fire, and distance. Sitting across a table so long their voices nearly had to travel, because the way she kept glancing at the exits told him she needed to feel like she could leave. She appreciated that more than she would ever say. After a long silence, she said, "The warm milk." He looked up. "You said I saved you. I don't remember that. And I think I would remember." She glanced at his silver hair, his red eyes. "You," he told her, carefully, like unfolding something kept pressed flat for years. 10 years ago, she had been 12. The winter her mother first got sick. Walking home through the old part of the city when she found a young man collapsed in an alleyway. Pale, shaking, a wound on his side. She pressed 2 fingers to his throat. A pulse. Faint, but there. "You can't sleep here. It's too cold." He hadn't woken, so she went home. Heated the last of the milk saved for her mother's medicine. Carried it back to the alleyway in both hands. Sat on the cold ground. Held the mug to his lips. His eyes opened. They were red. She stared for 3 seconds, then said, with perfect calm, "Drink. Don't be afraid. Kindness will save you." Like red eyes were simply a detail, and a detail was not worth more than a life. She patted his arm once, picked up her empty mug, walked home in the dark. She had never learned his name. Amara sat very still. She remembered none of this. So many small kindnesses over the years. This one had dissolved into the rest of her. It hadn't felt significant to her. It had felt like the most significant moment of his entire existence. "You were 12 years old, alone in the dark, and you told me not to be afraid." He paused. No one had said that to me in over 200 years. Something behind her sternum loosened, just enough to hurt. "You saved my mother," she said. "Last year." She thought she'd imagined it. She did not imagine it. She looked up at him. He watched her with something older and quieter than pity, like someone who had been waiting a very long time to simply be seen. "Please don't be another one who surprises me in the wrong direction." It was Carter who caused the incident with the soup. Vegetable scraps, salt, 3 herbs she didn't recognize, and a degree of optimism that was, under the circumstances, impressive. "It's glowing," Carter announced, stumbling backward. It was. Soft, pulsing gold. warm as candlelight. "She's Dawnblood," he breathed. "Her blood carries a power ancient enough to heal or destroy a vampire king entirely. A bloodline the Elder Council thought extinct." "It is soup," Amara said. "I used vegetable scraps." Thorneval appeared in the doorway, looked at the pot, then at Amara. Something moved briefly across his expression. "Is there something you'd like to tell me?" "Not yet," he said. "That is a deeply unsatisfying answer." "It is an honest one." She ladled soup into 2 bowls and set one in front of him. He looked at it like a puzzle. "When did you last eat?" she asked. "Define eat." She closed her eyes briefly. "Sit down." He sat. He ate slowly, like someone relearning a language. Then, as the warmth reached somewhere deep, something in his shoulders released. "It is kind," he said. "It's vegetable scraps." "Made with care for someone you've known less than a day. That is precisely the definition of kind." She didn't answer, but she stopped looking at the exits. The dancing was her idea. The grand hall was echoing and empty, and old music came from somewhere inside the walls, muffled, like 3 rooms and 3 centuries away. She grabbed his hand. He went rigid. "You have been alive 300 years, and I'm willing to bet you have never done anything spontaneous. Step, no, that foot." "I know how to dance," he said, with dignity. "You are standing on my foot." "I am not—" "That is my foot." "I apologize." She was laughing, fuller now, less guarded. He watched her with that unnameable expression. They were genuinely terrible. But they didn't stop, and somewhere in the middle of the stumbling and the candlelight, Amara looked up and said, "Immortality doesn't bring happiness. This moment, right here, is what it actually means to live. For the first time in 300 years, truly, without armor." Thorneval Voss smiled, crooked, uncertain. The smile of someone whose face had forgotten how. She fell asleep on his shoulder. One moment talking about her mother, the next, gone. He went absolutely still. Slowly, he raised one hand and rested it against her hair. He had been alone for 300 years. Not lonely, he had always told himself. Loneliness implied wanting, and he had stopped wanting. He looked at the curls still damp from the rain. "Liar," said something old and quiet inside him. Carter and Zaire stood in the doorway, tears streaming, saying nothing. The black market had been Amara's idea. Her mother needed medication, the kind that only moved underground now. Thorneval had objected in 47 words and 1 significant look. She listened, nodded once, said, "I understand. Let's go." He went, because letting her go alone was not something he was willing to do. 3 levels below the old trade district. Torchlight, low ceilings. She found the medication, paid with the last coins from her jacket hem, turned to leave, and walked directly into Jabari Hale. Rested, dry, entirely too comfortable for a city under siege. "Amara, thank God. I've been looking for you." She looked at him for a long moment. "Did you—" "I know what happened at the dorm. I tried to stop them." Jabari. Quiet. The kind with weight. "Don't." As she moved past him, her hand brushed his jacket. She felt it before she saw it. A small glass vial tucked inside his pocket, faintly shimmering. She palmed it in the same motion she used to walk past him, smooth and unhurried. A vial of her own blood, she realized, drawn while she slept at the Citadel. the kind Veyron would need to locate a Dawnblood from a distance. She didn't look back. She didn't let him see that she had taken it. His footsteps moved the other direction, deeper into the market, toward a name she had never heard. Veyron. Behind her, out of sight, Jabari returned deeper into the market and made his exchange. Information for a promise. A betrayal sealed with a bite he accepted like a reward. Just when she thought she could trust again. The past returned. And this time, it had already sold her out. If this story is keeping you up at night, stay with it. The next part will change everything. The road to Lumina Citadel smelled like pine and cold stone. After the black market's torchlight and low ceilings, after the weight of everything she hadn't said to Jabari, the open air felt like something Amara hadn't known she needed. She walked with the medication tucked close to her chest, one hand pressed flat against her jacket pocket, fingers feeling the outline of the small bottle. Still here, still going, almost home. Thornaval walked beside her, not behind, not ahead, beside. She noticed that, the way he quietly positioned himself between her and every shadow, without drawing attention to it. She wasn't sure he even knew he was doing it. She almost said something. She didn't. The gates of Lumina Citadel were carved from pale stone, the kind that caught moonlight and held it, built to say, "You are safe here." Tonight, the torches along the walls burned double. The guards were checking everyone twice. Then a third time. They stopped at the sight of Thornaval. A long, wordless moment. Nobody moved. Then Amara stepped forward, tilted her chin up in the way she did when she was about to make something happen through sheer refusal to be intimidated. "He's with me." The guards looked at each other. They opened the gate. Thornaval looked down at her as they passed through, wearing that open, slightly undone expression she recognized from the dance. "That," he said quietly, "is the second time you have stood between me and someone afraid of what I am." "You stood between me and a war zone," Amara said. "We're even." She heard something behind her that sounded like the beginning of a smile. Her mother was waiting inside the courtyard. Nia Kane was small and thin in the way illness makes a person small. Not fragile, exactly, but as though something inside her was burning faster than it could be replenished. She had bright eyes and her daughter's exact way of standing. Straight-backed, chin up. The posture of a woman who had decided she was not going to be defeated today. She took one look at Amara, in someone else's dry clothes, and her face did that complicated mother thing. Relief and exhaustion and exasperation and love, all at once. "Baby." "Mom." Amara crossed the courtyard and was caught in both her mother's arms. And for a moment, she simply stopped. Stopped calculating. Stopped holding herself together through willpower alone. She pressed her face to her mother's shoulder and let the shaking come. She smells like the hospital and like home, Amara thought. She smells exactly like home. "I got the medication," she said into her mother's shoulder. "I got it. It's here." "I know, baby." Nia's hand moved in slow circles on her daughter's back. "You always come home." Tornaval stood at the end of the courtyard. He did not intrude. He stood at a respectful distance, hands clasped, expression carefully neutral. And if something in his eyes looked like grief, the particular grief of someone watching a thing they have never had and are not sure they are permitted to want, no one was looking closely enough to see it. Nia Kane, however, was not looking at him. She studied him over her daughter's shoulder for a long, measuring moment. The man with silver hair and red eyes who had walked through Lumina's gates beside Amara, who had not stepped forward, who had given her daughter room to come home. You must be the reason she made it here, Nia said. No, Tornaval said. She made it here herself. I simply stayed beside her. Nia held his gaze for another moment. Then, come inside, both of you. It's cold. He was inside before they heard the commotion. A figure stumbling through the inner courtyard, shouting, a sound as disorienting as a grown man begging. Jabari Hale had found them. He looked nothing like he had at the market. The easy composure was gone. His shirt torn at the shoulder, his eyes too bright, feverish and desperate. And even from across the courtyard, Amara could see the dark, spreading mark at the side of his neck. A bite. Recent. Amara. He spotted her immediately. Please, I need help. She was very still. I need the Vampire King's blood. His voice cracked on the last word. If I don't get it, I'll turn. I can feel it starting. Jabari, I want to be different from what I am. The words stripped themselves of all their polish. I've spent years trying to find a way out of being ordinary, being afraid, being left behind, and I made the wrong choices to get there. I gave Veyron information about you, about what you are. I thought it would buy me something worth having. I know that now. But please, stop. Her voice was quiet, the same quiet from the dorm hallway, from the market, the kind with weight. He stopped. She looked at him for a long time, long enough that the silence became its own answer. You left me in the rain, she said. You decided I mattered less than your own survival. And now, scared and hurting, you want me to give you something you never offered me. A reason to care. He opened his mouth. I'm not angry at you. And the terrible thing was, it was true. But I need you to hear this. Even those who have done terrible things are still capable of compassion and sacrifice. You were never incapable of it either. You simply chose not to use it. Kindness isn't something you get to call on only when it benefits you. She stepped back. I hope you find something worth protecting, Jabari. I genuinely do. Then, the silver bullet. It came through the high window of the inner courtyard, small, fast, nearly silent, the way dangerous things often are. It struck Thornival in the shoulder. The sound he made was not a cry. It was a sharp exhale, the sound of someone absorbing impact through deliberate suppression. He was already turning, already putting his body between the direction of the shot and Amara. Even as his knees bent and his hand pressed against the wound. Silver blood. It ran between his fingers in thin, shimmering threads. Not quite red, not quite white. The color of a full moon in deep water. Amara was beside him before the thought had fully formed. Sit down. That wasn't a question. Sit down. He sat. She was already tearing a strip from the hem of her jacket, the one he had given her at the Citadel, softer than anything she owned. She pressed it against the wound with both hands and felt him go completely still beneath her palms. The bullet has to come out, she said. Steady voice, steady hands. She had learned steadiness from her mother, who had learned it from necessity, and passed it on like an inheritance. Look at me. He looked at her. Stay with me, she said. Something flickered behind his eyes. That same open, undefended thing from the dance. I am not going anywhere, he said. I have been following you for 10 years. I believe you are stuck with me. Despite everything, the blood on her hands, the chaos around her, Amara let out a breath that was very close to a laugh. Hold still, she worked quickly. 3 summers of helping at her mother's understaffed clinic had given her steady hands and a methodical mind. She packed the wound, bound it, did not allow herself to think about what the silver threads in his blood meant. Not yet. When the shimmering had slowed to almost nothing, she sat back on her heels and studied him. He looked diminished. Not in pain, exactly, but as though the bullet had taken something beyond blood. The ancient, watchful depth behind his eyes was quieter than she had ever seen it. "The silver is affecting your power," she said. "Yes." "How bad?" A pause, the kind that meant he was deciding how honest to be. "Bad," he said. She pressed her lips together, looked at her hands, silver-threaded red drying in the creases of her palms. And then the memory arrived, the way deep memories do, without warning, whole. A 12-year-old girl kneeling on cold cobblestones, a mug of warm milk held in both hands, a wounded boy with red eyes, shaking so hard she could hear his teeth. "Drink. Don't be afraid. Kindness will save you." She had said that, 12 years old, alone in the dark, to a being the entire city feared, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. And he had believed her, and he had spent 10 years believing her. And now he was sitting here with silver in his blood and fading power. And she could see it in the set of his jaw, that even injured and diminished, his first instinct was still to check the space behind her, to make sure she was not in danger. He was not afraid of dying. He was afraid of not being there to protect her. The realization landed the way large truths land, not like a blow, but like the floor dropping away, slow and total and irreversible. He would give everything, she thought. He already has been, for a decade, without once asking for anything in return. And beneath that thought, deeper and colder, something is coming that I don't know about yet. The vial she had taken from Jabari's pocket, the name Veyron, a silver bullet from a high window in a place that was supposed to be safe. This wasn't random. This was aimed. The noise outside Lumina's walls had been growing for 10 minutes. She had been too focused to hear it properly until now. Not the curse, not scattered chaos. An army, organized, moving with purpose. Jabari's voice came from somewhere behind her, low, past pretending. "He's been coming for the citadel since before we left the market. I thought if I gave him something valuable enough, what you are, he would give me what I needed." A silence so complete it was almost physical. Amara turned to look at him. He had his hand pressed to his neck and was staring at the floor. She stood up. She looked at Thorneval, the bound shoulder, the dimmed eyes. The man who had protected her for a decade without ever asking for her gratitude. And in that moment she understood the terrible truth. The army at the gates had come because of her. Everything that was about to happen, the siege, the battle, all of it, traced back to a cup of warm milk, to a quiet act of kindness that had set the entire world in motion. She was the reason he was bleeding, and she was the only one who could end this. The roar outside shook the stones beneath her feet. She reached down and took his hand. "Get up," she said. "We're not done yet." If you're still here, you already know this story isn't just about monsters. Share it with someone who needs to believe in kindness today. The gates of Lumina Citadel did not hold. They lasted longer than stone and iron had any right to. But eventually, with a sound like the world splitting at a seam, they gave. Amara had been counting seconds from the moment the roaring started. She reached 217 before the darkness poured through. And it was not like the scattered vampire curse she had seen on broadcasts. This was ordered, ranked, moving with the deliberate patience of an army that had spent years waiting for permission to arrive. At its center, Veyron Voss. He resembled Thorneval the way a forgery resembles the original. Same height, same sharp architecture of cheekbone and jaw, same silver hair. But Veyron was Thorneval's estranged younger brother, cast out 3 centuries ago, the rejected heir who had spent every decade since building an army from bitterness and borrowed time. Where Thorneval had the settled stillness of something old and self-contained, Veyron had the restlessness of a man who had been wanting for a very long time and had finally given himself permission to take. His eyes found Amara immediately. "The Dawnblood," he said. "Not a greeting, a transaction. Come willingly, and I leave the citadel standing. Resist, and I won't." "That's a confident offer," Amara said, "from someone who just broke through a gate." Veyron tilted his head. "Your blood can restore the vampire curse to full power, or burn it out completely. Do you understand what that makes you? You are not a girl. You are a weapon. And weapons don't get to choose who holds them." Something shifted behind Amara's eyes. "I have spent my entire life being told what I am," she thought. "Too poor, too trusting, too much, or not enough, depending on who needed me smaller. I am extraordinarily tired of other people's definitions." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the small glass vial she had lifted from Jabari at the market. The one that had shimmered. The one that held a trace of her own blood. Exactly what Veyron needed to track a Dawnblood and bind her power to his curse. She held it up between 2 fingers. "Looking for this?" Veyron's expression darkened. She threw it sideways, hard, against the wall. It shattered. The shimmer dissolved into nothing. "I'm not a weapon," she said. "And I'm not going anywhere with you." The battle erupted. Carter and Zaire appeared from somewhere. She never found out exactly where, and threw themselves into the fight with an enthusiasm that was alarming and, she realized in the fragmented way you notice things during chaos, deeply loyal. They were not built for a battle of this scale. They knew that. They fought anyway. Amara fought with what she had. Self-defense reflexes drilled into her during years of walking home alone through Nocturne's darker streets. Shattered glass vials used as distraction devices, and the particular ferocity of someone who has something to protect and has finally stopped apologizing for caring about it. She stayed close to Thorneval. He stayed close to her. Even weakened, even with the silver still working its quiet damage. He moved like water finding its level. He did not fight to destroy. He fought to stand between every incoming threat and the people behind him. He fought like a wall. She fought like a storm. Between them. They were nearly enough. Nearly. She heard it before she saw it. A sound like a bell struck too hard, resonant and wrong. And then Thorneval made that exhale again. And when she turned, he was already falling. Veyron had struck him directly. Not a bullet this time, something older and deliberate. A blow aimed at the center of his chest. The silver blood came immediately, flooding between his fingers as he pressed both hands to the wound. More than before, far more, spreading across the pale stone floor in thin, branching lines like frost on winter glass. His knees hit the ground. "Thorneval." He looked up at her. His eyes were dimming, the deep ruby red fading toward something softer, more fragile. the ancient watchfulness going quiet. And even now, even in this, his first instinct was to track the space behind her, to check that she was safe. Even now, she thought, and something inside her broke cleanly in two. Don't. His voice was strained. Don't cry. You're the one who taught me. Don't, Amara said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were shaking. Don't use my own words against me right now. I would rather lose everything, he said, with the quiet finality of something carried a long time and at last set down, than lose you, to give everything for someone you love. That is how we truly live. She was already moving. She bit her own hand, not recklessly, just enough. The pain was clean, and she breathed through it the way her mother had always taught her. In, hold, out. The blood that rose was gold, not approximately, not as a metaphor. Radiant, luminous gold. The same color as the soup in the citadel's kitchen. Warm as candlelight. The dawn blood her blood had always carried. Rising now as though it had been waiting for exactly this moment, for a wound this specific, for a heart this worth saving. She pressed her hand to his mouth. Drink, she said. He looked at her. Don't be afraid. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Kindness will save you. It saved you once already. The echo of the words moved through the air between them like something physical, like a key turning in a lock that had been waiting 10 years to open. He drank. What happened next? Amara experienced in pieces, the gold spreading from her hand into his wound, not trickling, but flowing with purpose, the way kindness moves when it finally has somewhere to go. The wound closing, the silver threads in his blood burning away one by one, her light chasing each down like a flame tracing a fuse in reverse. Veyron's power turned against him. The dawn blood in the air interacted with the vampire curse he had spent years trying to restore, dismantling it from the inside. Not violently, just inevitably, undeniably. His power collapsed inward, and he went with it. And the last sound she heard from him was something close to surprise. Then silence. The army stilled. The fighting stopped. Without Veyron's will to drive them, the vampires who remained were simply confused. Standing in the rubble of a battle they were no longer certain they had chosen. Carter and Zaire, somewhere in the wreckage, made sounds of enormous personal triumph. Amara didn't hear any of it. She was losing too much blood. She knew it the way you know things that are happening to your own body, not as information, but as sensation. The edges of her vision softening, her legs deciding that standing was optional. The cold of the citadel floor rising through her knees as she sank. Mom, she thought, I got you the medication. I got it home. I did that part. Just hold on. I'll be... Hands on her face. Both hands, cupping her jaw with a precision she recognized before she had fully processed what was happening. The same hands, the same deliberate, impossible warmth that had stopped her in the rain corridor and remade everything. She opened her eyes. He was kneeling in front of her. His hair was black, the silver entirely gone, replaced with deep black. Still long, still falling loose around a face that had changed and hadn't. Lines at the corners of his eyes now. The slight asymmetry of a face that was aging for the first time in 300 years. Doing it from a place of arrival rather than loss. His eyes were brown, warm, ordinary, human brown. She looked at him with an expression she finally, after everything had a name for. "You healed me," she said. "Your dawn blood turned back on you the moment it completed its purpose," he said. "It healed you from the inside out. I simply stayed beside you." A pause. Her own words returned to her. "I believe we are even." His thumb traced once along her cheekbone, slowly, like something being memorized. "You burned away my power," he said. Not an accusation, not a grief. A fact, weighed and accepted. 300 years of darkness. And I would choose it again, Amara, for a single evening of soup and dancing and the sound of you laughing at my terrible footwork. I would choose it every time. Something cracked open inside her chest, the knot she had been carrying, of loneliness, of erasure, of giving and giving without ever being truly seen, did not tighten again. It was gone. For the first time in years, she felt entirely, completely, unreservedly held. "You're human now," she said. "Yes." "That is going to be a significant adjustment." "I expect so." "You are going to need to learn how to make soup." The corner of his mouth moved, that crooked, remembered, genuine smile. Slightly more practiced now, but no less honest. "I have," he said. "An excellent teacher." She leaned her forehead against his. The citadel was quiet, the battle over. Dawn coming at the edge of the sky, pale and gray and absolutely inevitable, the way it always comes, the way it always will. For the first time in longer than she could measure, she knew exactly what she had to do. Not fight, not survive, not carry everything alone. Live. If this story reached something inside you, pass it on. Some stories deserve to be found by the right person at the right time. The sun came up over Nocturne the way it always had, unhurried, pale gold spreading across broken gates and scorched stone. A city that had been holding its breath for 3 days, only now beginning to exhale. Amara Kane slept for 14 hours. No dreams, just the soft darkness of a body that has given everything and is politely requesting time to recover. When she woke, her mother was in the chair beside the bed, upright, watchful. The way mothers sit when they have spent years waiting for their children to come home. "How do you feel?" Naya asked. Amara took a quiet inventory. Sore, tired all the way down, her bandaged hand, and her chest, open. A tightness she had carried so long she had stopped noticing it. Gone. "I feel like something finished," she said. Naya nodded once. The satisfaction of a woman who understands exactly what that means. Good. It was time. He was in the courtyard when she found him, not standing guard, sitting on the low stone wall in the early light, hands resting open on his knees, learning a different kind of stillness. Human stillness. The kind that is simply rest. He looked up when he heard her. The brown eyes were still new, that warm, startling brown. They sat together. Neither spoke. Birds in the eaves, the smell of something cooking, the distant sound of people beginning the quiet work of rebuilding. "How is your hand?" he asked. "Fine. Your shoulder?" "Stiff. I was not aware recovering from injuries required this much time." "Welcome to being human." "It is," he said, with great feeling. "Deeply inconvenient." She laughed, real and unguarded. He watched her with the expression she had named at last. Not admiration, simply love. Patient, long settled, entirely unashamed of itself. Carter had found seeds somewhere. No one asked where. He presented them to Amara at breakfast. Both hands. A slight bow. For the garden. Because things that grow are harder to destroy than things that don't. That is surprisingly wise. I have my moments, Carter said, with dignity. Don't tell him that, Zaire said. He'll never stop. They planted that afternoon, all four of them, Nia directing from a chair, with the authority of someone who has earned the right to supervise. Amara dug the first row. She was aware of her bandaged hand, the warmth still faintly in the skin. Not glowing now, just there, like an ember that had decided to stay. She felt no grief about it. She had expected loss, the dawn blood, that luminous gold at the worst and best moment of her life. She had expected diminishment. It felt like completion, like something that had always been in her had finally been used for what it was meant for, given freely, at the moment it was needed most. Thorn crouched beside her and pressed seeds into the soil with focused care. A man who had decided to do this correctly. He kept pressing too deep, then reconsidering. She nudged his hand gently to the right angle. They'll grow, she said. How do you know? We're putting them in good ground and showing up to take care of them. That's how most things grow. A pause. You are not only talking about the seeds, he said. I am absolutely only talking about the seeds. The corner of his mouth moved. Behind them, Carter and Zaire argued about spacing. Naya offered commentary. The sun was warm on Amara's back. They left Lumina 3 weeks later. The house at the forest's edge was small. Stone walls, south-facing window. A garden plot in the side yard that had been waiting. Patient. For someone to notice it. The first night, they ate on the floor. No chairs yet. Thorn ate the soup with the focused attention of a man still quietly amazed that food could feel like this, that a shared meal could carry so much. You were a king, Amara said, watching him. Yes. Feared across the entire city. 300 years of darkness. And now you're sitting on my floor eating soup, and you look... She searched for the word. Content. I was once a king of darkness, he said. But you are the one who truly saved me. Not with blood, with kindness. The decision to sit with a stranger in the dark and tell him not to be afraid. She looked at her bowl. I didn't think about it. He needed help, that was all. That is what makes it extraordinary. You were 12. You had very little. And your first thought was not, what will this cost me? It was simply, he needs help. We were poor, she said. We always have been. But my mother always told me, no matter what you don't have, you always have kindness. That one doesn't cost anything. Thorn was quiet. Your mother, he said finally, is the wisest person I have ever met. And I have met a considerable number. Don't tell her that. She'll never stop. You both do that. Family trait. He smiled. Crooked. Genuine. A little steadier now. Outside. Wind through the pines. The quiet sounds of a world carefully beginning again. The house felt different from anywhere she had ever lived. Not because of its size. Not what was inside. Almost nothing. One pot, borrowed blankets, seeds on the windowsill. Different because of what it didn't have. No locked doors. No one deciding she was expendable. It has room, Amara thought, for exactly what we are. She leaned back against the wall and held the thought the way you hold something that has finally stopped being fragile. No matter how little we have each other, and that is real happiness. If this story gave you something you needed today, hold on to it. Some kindnesses come back to you in the most beautiful ways. 1 year later. The garden had opinions. Tomatoes claiming the southern wall entirely. Herbs wandering wherever they felt like. A stubborn row Carter had planted, he still would not say what, that turned out to be lavender, which no one requested, and which smelled extraordinary. Thorn tended it every morning. This had surprised Amara. She had expected a man who spent 3 centuries commanding armies to find a tomato plant beneath him. Instead, he had become almost ceremonial about it. Early light, the same careful attention once given to strategy, now redirected to whether the basil was getting enough water. She watched him from the kitchen window and thought, this is what it looks like when something old and tired decides to begin again. She had started teaching, not at Nocturne University, which had sent a very apologetic letter of reinstatement. She read it twice, thanked them politely, put it in the drawer under the extra candles. She taught at the community center instead. 2 evenings a week, mismatched chairs, a whiteboard that smelled of markers she had bought herself. Students who worked all day and came in the evenings anyway because they had decided their lives still had room for more. She brought soup on the cold nights. It didn't glow anymore, just soup, made with care. In the same pot from the Citadel's kitchen, small dent on the left side. She had decided to call it character. Her students called her Miss Kane with a warmth that was not required and not performed. One of them, a woman in her 60s, back in school after her husband died, stayed after class one evening and said quietly, I didn't think I had the right to want things anymore, not at my age. Amara thought of a 12-year-old in a dark alley, cold ground, warm milk. You always have that right, she said. It doesn't expire. The woman put on her coat and went home. She came back the following Tuesday, and the one after that. Going back to the dormitory was Thorne's idea, one October evening over dinner. Direct, without preamble. I would like to see the building. I think you should see it again too. Why? Because it looks different from the outside when you are not standing in the rain. They went on a Saturday. The campus quiet. Streets smelling like wet leaves and coffee. The dormitory looked exactly the same. Same stone, same heavy door with the black iron handle she had pressed her palm against and begged. She stood in front of it, Thorne beside her. Not speaking, just present. She thought about that night. The rain, the bread roll in the puddle, the silence on the other side of the wood. If they had opened the door, I would have gone inside and been safe. He would still be alone. My mother's attacker never driven off. None of this past year, not one moment, would have happened. She raised her palm and rested it flat against the door. Just to feel the wood. Every locked door led you somewhere. Not because it was kind, but because you kept moving. Thorne cradled her face in both hands. That same gesture, that same warmth from the rainy night that remade everything, and pressed his lips to her forehead. Always, he said quietly. Not just 10 years, for a lifetime. She covered his hands with hers. We're even, she said. They smiled, turned, walked back into the morning. The lavender was in bloom when they got home. Carter crouched in the garden, quietly taking personal credit. Zaire in the doorway pretending not to have been watching for them. Nia at the kitchen table, writing letters to people she had lost touch with. Too much time. No good reason for any of it. Everything ordinary. Everything exactly enough. Amara sat across from her mother, rested her chin in her hand, looked through the window at Thorn in the garden, the tomatoes claiming their wall. Small proof that things grow when someone keeps showing up to tend them. Kindness does not require an audience. It requires only the decision, made again and again, in small and ordinary moments, to treat the person in front of you as though they matter. The locked door had not been the end of her story. It had been the beginning of it, and the beginning was beautiful. The camera pulls back from the kitchen window, past the lavender, past the tomatoes, past the tree line. A figure at the edge of the forest, still, cloaked, eyes glowing faintly, not red, something older. A whisper on the wind. The last Dawnblood still lives, though her power has been given away. The Elder Council's hunt has only just begun. The figure is gone. The lavender sways in a breeze that wasn't there a moment ago. Inside, Amara laughs at something her mother said. Thorn, in the garden, turns toward the sound. Darkness may return, but love and courage will help us face it together. The kindness of a poor girl saved a king of darkness, but darkness never truly disappears. This story reminds us that the kindnesses we barely remember giving are the ones that change someone's life forever. Amara saved a stranger with a cup of warm milk and forgot it by morning. He carried it for 10 years. You have done the same, more times than you know. So here is something small. Think of one person you haven't called in too long. Not a text, a real phone call. Say simply, "I was thinking about you. How are you really doing?" Then listen. That is the whole thing. That is the cup of warm milk. The vampire story you're about to watch carries the strong personal imprint of a real human. Every drop of blood and every crimson gaze was born from the author's imagination and life experiences. AI was merely a quiet friend who helped polish the language,